Yeah, I'm Charles Killmer. I'm a security analyst, QSA solutions architect with FRSecure. I've been in information technology for about 20 years, focused on information security for about 10. FRSecure was founded in about 2008. Evan Francine started it in his response to his experience of seeing information security really treated as an IT issue. Information security is really a business issue. So FRSecure was built to form sort of a team of security professionals focused really on helping organizations understand information security, see where they have opportunities for improvement, and providing guidance and some actionable information about how to improve their information security posture. So I'll go ahead and share my screen real quick. So the first part here, we're going to be talking about social engineering, what it is, how to avoid it. One of my favorite movies on this topic, The Sting, if anybody has seen it, great movie, pre-computers, but all of the tactics are really the same today. So at the end of the day, the best way to get anyone to do what you want them to do is to get them to want to do it. Everybody's familiar with what con artists are. Con artists did not go away. They just changed the tools and tactics that they use. So this quote from The Sting, your boss is quite good. How does he do it? Simple, he cheats. And that's what con artists have adapted to, using the internet and the tools of technology to carry out their modern day con attacks. In terms of why they do it, Brian Krebs drew up this nice infographic in 2012. And if you notice in the lower right corner, he even highlighted ransomware, which in 2012 was pretty infant in its sophistication. But really what the value is in a hacked PC or a compromised computer. Why do they even target so many people? And they see a lot of value in these computers, whether they can get money directly from it or use someone's identity to carry out some other future con attack. Keep in mind, they are trying to manipulate people. They're just using technology as the modern tools of their trade. I like to highlight the story of Matt Honan, who within the space of an hour, his entire digital life was destroyed, according to him. Hackers had gotten in and erased all of his Apple devices and all of his online backups. They did this through a combination of providing a little bit of information to Amazon and a little bit of information to Apple. And the responses they got from each was able to then be used to confirm the attacker's stolen Matt Honan identity to Apple and Amazon, respectively. So they took advantage of some security flaws at those two companies to compromise his accounts and really create some chaos. The thing I really like about highlighting this case is that the attacker defines the value. Many people would look at that and say, I don't have anything of value. Why would they want to attack me? What's in it for them? Matt had an interesting opportunity to actually chat with the attacker, who then confessed that the hack was simply a grab for his 3-letter Twitter handle. So strange motive to go for, but again, the attacker defines the value. If you think you don't have anything worth attacking, you're not the one making that decision. The attacker is. So to summarize a little bit on how they attack, modern systems are quite well protected. 20, 30 years of operating system experience, many of the flaws that can allow an attacker to directly compromise a system have been fixed, and we've learned our lessons. That isn't to say that these types of attacks don't happen. Microsoft just patched one recently, but they're few and far between, and there's a much better opportunity for these attackers to take advantage of our systems. And that's by simply largely asking us. So they send us an email, and we can all receive email. They have some instructions in there. Click a link, open an attachment, follow some other instructions. And they're waiting then for you to carry out their instructions. These poor attackers need your help to compromise your systems. They can't do it directly as easily anymore. And people are very helpful in allowing this thing to happen. So largely, that's one of 3 ways that I highlight when I do my information security awareness trainings. Second that I highlight is compromising an ad network. We've all been to websites. Many websites use advertisements to earn a revenue. Those ads can contain code, whether that's playing some music, running some survey, showing a video. That code can also then be malicious. So if the attacker can compromise an ad network, they can get those malicious ads served to legitimate websites. And then it's just a waiting game on their side. They wait for people to eventually go to those websites, and then this malicious ad gets served and ultimately leads to a compromise of their system. The compromise is not always 100%, but it's a numbers game. The more times they serve these malicious ads, the more they compromise, the more they can look around and find other useful information to either steal, encrypt, or use in a later attack. Third is they simply use your compromised password. If you are the sort that uses the same password on many different websites, you are then trusting the security of your information to the security of the website that cares the least about information security. So when that website suffers a password database breach, they simply log in as you. And at that point, they can just access or request whatever information they want. An example of this, I worked on a case where a doctor's email account used the same password as his LinkedIn email account or his LinkedIn account. LinkedIn suffered a password database breach a number of years ago. Someone logged into his Outlook web access account, which didn't have any multi-factor authentication on it to protect it. They then looked through his email, found who in the organization is able and allowed to make wire transfers, looked at sorts of nicknames that they use, patterns of speech, typical amounts, typical frequencies, and then just requested more wire transfers. So the person actually carrying out the wire transfer request had no ability to see that that was a malicious request. Came from the doctor's real email address. Numbers, frequency looked appropriate, nicknames were used, everything was fine. When we looked into it, we didn't see any evidence of a wrong password guess, which then suggests they never guessed the wrong password. They simply logged in with the password that they found in some breach. So at that point, game over. Your identity is stolen, and whatever that account has access to can be used to exfiltrate data, encrypt data, steal information, wire transfer, whatever they want to do. Largely, there are 3 types of phishing attacks, social engineering over email. General phishing, which is really a numbers game. Send out millions of generic email messages with a slightly convincing message. Not a lot of effort is put into them. It's really a numbers game, a million. If 1% hit, that's a nice return on investment. Spear phishing is the more focused. They spend more time understanding their mark, their target, looking at what activities they've gone through, what their interests may be, and crafting the email in a much more focused way with the intent of getting a single specific person to fall for that con attack. Whaling is similar to spear phishing, but really going for those executives. The executive may not have access to information, but they've got an incredible identity that can be used to carry out other attacks. You could say that had the doctor's example in the previous slide not simply been a password reuse issue, that would be a nice example of a whaling attack, because they didn't use that account to steal data. They used that account to influence someone else. One thing to note as we go through ways to spot these phishing attacks, we talk often about differences in grammar, spelling mistakes, generic greetings. We often talk about these being mistakes, and I like to look at these as potential pre-screening features of the phishing attack, of the social engineer's tool set. If their victim, if the person that receives this email is observant enough to notice the differences in grammar and spelling mistakes and generic greetings, they may be too observant for the rest of the con. In other words, that person is a waste of the con artist's time. They don't want to talk to you. They would rather you delete the email so that more, I don't want to say gullible people, would respond to the email and carry out the rest of the con, whatever it may be. These are some things to look for, but those tend to be the dead giveaways. Spear phishing emails, whaling emails will not be that easy to detect. Here's an example of a rudimentary sort of identity theft. Stu Showerman from KnowBe4. He's the founder, I believe, over there. This email is making it look like it comes from him, but that was forged. His email address in this example was forged. Stu's account was never compromised. He never sent this. But the attacker was wanting Alana in this instance to send all of the W-2 information for them to do something. Likely it would have been fraudulent income tax returns. He didn't fall for it. The Alana at the organization didn't fall for it either. They spend a lot of time on information security and phishing protection. So we use this as an example of the type of thing that can come across. You may have seen these as well. We get them all the time as well. Every organization does. Jess got this email a few times last year, in fact. She noticed that that is not Evan's email address. Additionally, on all of our email that comes from outside the organization, it shows up as in nice bold red letters that it did not come from within the organization. So if you have that on your email system, make sure you listen to it. It's very accurate, very good information that you should treat this email with a high level of suspicion. If you don't have this type of thing, ask your IT department. All mail servers, I think at this point, can support that type of warning. So a little bit, we won't get too much into the weeds on how to understand a web link, but it's important to take a look at the that you would be directed to if you do click on a link. So in this case, example.com is what we typically call the domain name. That's the combination of the second level domain plus the top level domain. Blog in this example is a subdomain, and that can have periods in it as well. So blog.example.com is managed and controlled by example.com. Everything past that / is just extra information about that website. But if they rearrange it a little bit to example.com.blog.com, sometimes people will look at it and see that it's example.com and not look any further. But you need to follow until you find that first /. In this case, example.com.blog.com is controlled by blog.com. And if that wants to host malicious information, example.com, the real website, has no ability to detect that or prevent it. One thing I like to highlight on password managers, how much they can help in detecting minor modifications in domain names in websites. The example on the left is Old Natamull with an M instead of an ION. The example on the right is the real oldnational.com. And you'll see that only one of them pre-populates the username and password. And this is what we tell people to look for, these substitutions in the domain name that people may miss if they're in a hurry or just not thinking that they're under attack. But a computer won't miss that. It's going to look for an exact match. Unless there's some bug or flaw in the password manager, it's not going to pre-populate your username and password in a domain name that isn't 100% exact. If they succeed in any sort of a phishing attack, a social engineering attack, really the sky is the limits in terms of what can be done. So if they're able to get you to install malware, or really it's just software that does malicious stuff, whether that's keylogging or joining your computer to a botnet, which is largely a distributed network of computers acting in tandem to carry out instructions of the botnet owner. So that can range from allowing sort of anonymous access to the internet through the botnet, or using that botnet to then target and compromise other organizations, in which your computer would just sort of be a part of that. They can then encrypt and hold other ransom files for ransom, or just use that entry point to gain further network access. I have a few examples here. This one I don't put in because it's sophisticated. I put it in here to really highlight that if you carefully, I always say, hover your mouse over the link that they want you to click on, you can use that to sort of gauge how malicious the email is. In this case, the link is showing that it's going to direct you to euroautoberlin.de. But if the email comes from DHL, that's not a likely website that DHL is going to be sending you to. Ideally, if it is a shipment notification, just go to DHL's website. If the email did not include shipping tracking number information, it's likely malicious. An example of using sort of a threat or sense of urgency to get you to click on a link. No one wants to lose their Netflix account, but if you read a little further, I find it a little suspicious that they would not reference your name and that iTunes let them know that you want to cancel your membership. Another example with some generic greeting and another sense of urgency. Again, their goal is to get you to click on this link. Again, just go to the ups.com website directly and enter that tracking number. Additionally, I've never really seen a tracking number with a variety of characters like that. PayPal, no one wants to lose their PayPal account, but this one's been suspended already. There's strange grammar at the bottom. You are currently made disabled of. I've never heard it phrased like that either. These don't always have to come for services like that. They can look like official Department of Labor emails as well. In this case, dol.gov was actually forged and sent to undisclosed recipients. We need you to update your information. Simply click here. You'll see the forged email address there. And then another example, claiming to come from our CEO and founder again, but again, that's not his email address. And again, that message should always be trusted. So social engineering isn't always over email. It can happen in person. It can happen with a phone call or a text message. In person, a method that I've heard of people using is dressing up as a sanitation crew, and then just going to the front desk with malicious USB drives and say you found them in the dumpster. Really risky because you're probably on camera somewhere, and highly illegal unless the organization has allowed you to do it. But it's that type of con artist activity where you're taking advantage of human trust. People tend to want to help other people. Regardless of the method they use, all of them work very well. The con artists have been around since the dawn of time. For as long as people have had something worth stealing, people have been around trying to find ways to steal it. And con attacks, con artists, are really adept at sort of evolving to the modern times.